Hello, everyone. Glad you're able to join us tonight. Appreciate all the crew being here on the morning watch. If you're new to the channel, we'll have a little short presentation. Then we'll start answering some questions. And like everyone knows that's been with me a while for the morning watch, we start off with true crime, and eventually some of the regular crew will get into the Waffle House stuff. But anyway, tonight we're going to be looking specifically at the Springfield 3, which is a case from, I believe it's 92. But if you're going to be asking questions or interaction in chat, always be mindful that we're respectful of families, the mods, and each other. So enjoy your time here, and we'll, throughout the presentation, I'll be going through chat, and I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. And we just appreciate y'all all being here tonight. And with that being said, we'll get started on this thing. Okay. This is the VCAP flyer that is generated by the FBI anytime we have certain types of abductions, missing persons, homicides. And it has a basic introduction of the crime that was committed. And I'd never heard of this case until some of my members and people in chat started mentioning the case. And I looked into it. Extremely interesting case, very concerning. And certain things about the case early on and the direction that it took is kind of strange. But some of the decisions made by law enforcement, and it's true in all cases, that when we look at these cases, those initial days of when the investigation first start, law enforcement often chooses which way they're going to go. And we see that in a lot of the code cases, they went down the wrong avenues. And did they in this case? I have no idea yet. I'm just started researching it the last few days, and there's a lot of articles, there's a lot of videos, there's a lot of stuff covering this case, and even you have offenders, which there's no lack of potential people that could be involved in this case, but there are certain ones of them that had notoriety at the time and since, especially this Robert Craig Cox, who is a kidnapper and robbery suspect that advised law enforcement that they were deceased and they would never be found, which is, we'll get into that a little bit more later, of why certain individuals make statements, true or not. Ted Bundy did, about the Green River killer. And certain individuals that commit certain crimes, they know what has happened to those victims, regardless if they're involved or not. But with that, we'll go on into here. The Springfield 3 is an unsolved case at June the 7th, 92, when friends Suzanne and Stacy and their mother, with Suzanne's mother, Cheryl Levitt, went missing from their home in Springfield, Missouri. Personal belongings, cars, purses, keys. There was no signs of a struggle or anything at the residence. They were just not there. There was a interesting thing about the broken porch light. And why was that light broken? And it is kind of strange for someone to break a porch light. Normally, they just unscrew them rather than break them. And as we look into that, there's several reasons of why it might have been broken. And, it's kind of disturbing of what some reasons that they do these things, because I've been at residences where people would actually go up and unscrew those lights, and to cause a victim to unlock the door and come outside, either to clean it up or to try to get the light back working. And I've seen in normally mostly domestics where that be occurred so that the uh, person would feel um, and be exposed to certain dangers. Don't know if that's what occurred here, but I've seen it happen before. But also, there was certain parts of this crime about there was a call left on the answering machine, and we're talking about a time. A lot of the younger people probably don't know. There was a time when we had phone books, and we didn't have smartphones. And this is, and we didn't even have cell phones. This here is at a critical time during the development of cell phones, and so. Um, uh, how available were people able to make calls from their cell phone? Uh, they weren't frequent in 92. Later on, within just a few years, you had bag phones and things. But in 92, I don't know if anyone that I worked with in this part of the country. Now, they may have been out in the Midwest more popular, but as I do my research, I'll see if we can figure out. But this would have been a time still when you had phone booths and you had to put the old quarter in to make a phone call. And but regardless, this message that was left on that answering machine was lost inadvertently. And as you can see here, there's some information about that they went missing between 2:15 and 7:30 in the morning after going to some graduation parties. Were they being stalked? And if there's phone messages on the phone call that are disturbing, then of course it does open that window of opportunity and that avenue of investigation that they should have went down. Um, but we also know that they're being reported missing came after a friend who was concerned that they hadn't met up as they were supposed to because they were going to go to a water park, and so the friend went over and went in and of course saw that the lamp on the porch was shattered, um, and that her and her boyfriend swept it up. They went in the house, found um, um, the dog that was upset, and also that they, while inside that residence, and we have to look at that, they went in that residence somewhere between 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning. And at that time, they received a phone call of a sexual nature. And of course, she hung up and immediately, within a few minutes, or uh, it says here, immediately received another call of someone else calling again. And she hung up again. And which brings up an interesting thing that I want the all the females in chat to think about. And for anyone that watches this video in the future, let me know of how many of y'all at 9 o'clock in the morning, females or males, have received a harassing sexual phone call at 9 o'clock in the morning. I never took a single call in my career at 9 o'clock in the morning regarding some type of harassing phone call of this nature. Even in domestics, they were generally at night, just not in the middle of the daytime. But with that being said, while y'all are doing that, I'm going to go through chat right quick and try to get caught up before I get too far behind. And tell everybody hello. Melissa, good to see you. Tammy, Ty, Victoria. You're having to listen to the Gummy Bear song. Hey, Dave, good to see you. Kowalski. Miranda said he's wearing the tie-dye shirt. Hello, Purdue. Good to see you. Yes, got rules, Molly. I'm glad to see Molly's in here tonight. She's staying up late. Great. Um, Somebody's working in the garden. Spring is here, especially here in Georgia. Everything is absolutely. I was out mowing all day, trying to get caught up. Betsy, good to see you. Dave said he remembers Howard Johnson as being the thing, and he's correct. Single mom of four, good to see you. Samantha. Um, Pigeon Mac. Red light, blue lights. Did you hit? Good to see you, Dandy. And Molly is correct about that. There's back then we didn't have caller ID. Still had party lines in some parts of here in Georgia. I don't know, like I said, in some of the metropolitan areas, if they still or if that was just something that was at the time. And I'm trying to think. Yes, we had 911 at that period, um, although it was still not as well structured and it didn't have all the bells and whistles that 911 has now. But it was evolving at that time. And the phone books were a danger, still are a danger, about, you talking about doxing. You know, the phone company, absolutely, uh, had that ability that you could look up anyone's address, even like in the movie Terminator, you know, the guy comes back from the future and, how does he find, Sarah Connor? He goes to the phone book. Yes, I had a pager also, Dave. All right. Molly says, "Not in the morning, always in the evening, uh, uh, usually, dinner time and or later." And that's the thing, that most of the calls that I did was, later in the evenings and at night. And, also the tampering with lights, the unscrewing of them, turning off the power. Um, I saw a lot of weird and dangerous things of harassment. Yes. And, Dandy says, "No harassing calls ever." Great. Um, Grace, I hate you not feeling well. Get better. Why can't they trace where these disturbing calls came from? Well, back then, we to trace a call, law enforcement could do it, and even operators could do. And during that era of when you had these, um, payphones, we called a serial offender who was an arsonist, um, and by luck, he didn't have the money to call law enforcement, so he had the operator call law enforcement as a emergency. And the operator stayed online and heard his threats of starting a fire, which he did. He'd already burned down several residences, and she traced it to a phone that he was using. And it took us like I guess another week of stakeout, and before he came back, started another arson fire and threatened us. And um, I had a nice confrontation with him, and we ceased his career. But yeah, some of those people that do those things back then, it wasn't like I said. You didn't have the caller ID or the technologies. Let's see here. Triple S says that when worked taking calls for the order for TV, all kinds of creepy calls would come in any time of day. But yes, I agree with you. I don't think anybody was working shifts for such a thing. And we had at least two females, the mother and daughter living there. And law enforcement, from the investigative standpoints of it, that they said that they didn't think that these harassing phone calls that that lady received at 9 o'clock in the morning that had anything to do with the crime. which that means one or two things. Either they didn't, you know, follow up on something that I think was important, but also were they receiving so many calls? Was it that there was a certain individual that law enforcement had received numerous calls that he was calling other victims? um, and that they knew of it. And so, therefore, they didn't say that, well, this is something that's commonplace. We've been having a lot of early morning phone calls from people for committing this type of offense. Don't know if that's true or not, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to see if they still have any of those records. And when we start researching and investigating this, I'm going to see if I can get in touch with someone in that part of the country that can see if we can't get some open records on some of the calls and types of calls. But it was extremely interesting. All right. But this is where the residence is. As you can see, there's a little pin there, red, that's behind the store and across from a, it looks like apartment parking lots near a main thoroughfare. That if someone at that time is receiving phone calls, it's almost as if they had line of sight. Because we didn't have social media. You couldn't tag. Uh, we didn't have air tags. We didn't have anything that would tell you that someone was at a certain residence. And so it would almost have to be that's line of sight. And then from line of sight, they would have to drive to the closest payphone or use their own residential phone. And most of all the harassing calls and of that type of nature that I worked on in my career came from the not cell phones, but the pay phones. Just like with the serial offender that was making those threatening calls, and that unless someone by chance, such as an operator who listened in during that emergency call, made a trace, you wouldn't know. Um, but we often used to set up traces um, for people that had harassing phone calls. It was commonplace, and they had to stay on the line for a certain amount of time. But uh, as that technology advanced, the time got less and less. Just like now, when your phone rings, you can look at it and tell you exactly who's on there. But here are the a little bit better, closer picture with age of progression photos of each of the missing persons. Of course, we have Cheryl Elizabeth Levitt, um, and so these are pictures of her aged out until I guess it's the current age. She was 47 then, and I think they come in and they do these age progressions every 5 years or 7 years or so. And but she was the mother. And then we have Susan Elizabeth Streeter, um, and of course, a very lovely lady. And as you'll see in each of these pictures, and they have age progression, but there's also a green van. There was a green van spotted, seen in the area of someone that called in a tip, and that was suspicious in nature. And of course, we won't be going over the green van tonight. I got to do some more research on it because it was reported about the female driver making certain statements and things that was highly suspicious. And so, and then of course, we have Stacy McCall, and this of her, and also some age progression, and once again with the green van. And all three of these were taken, and there was no signs of struggle. Which, whenever you go in, and how would someone be able to control three grown adults, even females? How do you do that? And of course, it takes some type of firearm or something of that nature, because you normally won't go willingly. And we're only talking about like a 5-hour window between 2 and 7 o'clock that morning, and of them being taken. And who commits crimes at that time of night? And we have to look at now from the profiling standpoints of it. It has to be an individual that is either extremely dominant, whereas his wife or girlfriend, that he can leave the house at those times, or he has to be a single individual that has no one that he's living with. And then if you abduct um, three people, you have to have a location to take them to. And where would that be? And it has to be where it's isolated. It's not someplace that you can, you're taking these ladies from a location here. Of course, it's setting off the road a little bit, but it is surrounded by people. And how would you keep one of them from not breaking away? And so it will be, as we look into it, there's a lot of things that we don't know. And as I get more familiar with some of the possibilities and some of the information, we'll be talking about more of those in depth. But as we've spoke about in the Delphi case, when Libby and Abby were confronted and he said down the hill, he had a location in mind of where he was going. Abductions don't occur. People do not kidnap people without a purpose and a location that they have in mind to take. Now, it doesn't always work out that it goes to those, that they make it there, because the victims oftentimes change the plans and will either fight, flee. And these victims chose, for whatever reason, not to, and which is extremely interesting. And then I looked at just some stuff that you normally would look at as far as what day of the week was it on, what was the weather conditions, what was moonlight, and just things of that nature. But like I said, I was just brief introduction tonight. We're going to be looking more in detail of this case as we go along, and but we'll get back in here to chat and see what's going on over here. And let me get in here. Yeah, I done got behind again. All right. Purdue says dinner time, never in the morning. Absolutely. Yes, Terry, you would think they would have checked logs, but I don't know how the phone company and, uh, at that time, I think we still paid for, and I'm almost certain that long distance calls were logged and things of that nature, but local calls were not. Um, and I think you still got, on the phone bills back then, you had, where you had to pay for long distance calls. So that had to be a local call more than likely, especially if the resident was under surveillance, um, for him to be able to watch someone enter and play out that fantasy. Because these people, what are the odds of three women being abducted from a house? And it tells us something else, that if it is related, that this individual was able, if he is the same offender, that he was able between 2 and 7 abduct them, take them somewheres and do whatever, and still be back at 7 o'clock if this is all one fantasy. And see, when, just as Kohlberger went back to his, I mean, actually, what are the parallels to it? You look at Kohlberger, about the same time frame. And then the next morning, what does he do? He goes back to the residence for whatever reason. He doesn't make a phone call, but he does drive by. And is this the same thing that this offender did? And we still have, of all parallels, we have 3 female victims, just like with Kohlberger. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, is this part of their fantasies to see what's going on? And when there is an opportunity to further terrorize other people, they chose to make that. And so there's a lot of parallels, both with the Delphi, about you have to have a location to take them to, but as with Kohlberger, you the time frames are, kind of eerie. But, anyway, Jo Jocelyn says that she remembers party lines. Danger Dave, 9 AM, better be good, I will be sleeping. Um, Kowalski said they had caller ID in the '90s. I can't remember. I'll take your word for it, wherever you're at. I don't remember, if we did here or not. I know we had answering machines and things, but I don't know if we had caller ID or if all the phone, answering machines, some of them would ID. Samantha, are there still party lines asking for a friend? I don't know. Betsy says that, caller ID was the best new technology. Okay. And Triple S said that in his learning curve, much as mine, that it was mid to late '90s. There was a lot of technologies, like I said, the cell phones and things were coming out, and 911 was going on. Kowalski, I had a harassing phone call in the AM, but it was my girlfriend, and that typically was what you would expect. And Anna said that hers uh, were from some type of disagreement, and time of day wasn't important. And you're correct that if it is something from some type of disagreement, um, and I answered a lot of those calls, but specifically for someone to um, at that time of morning at a residence, whereas there's just been 3 abductions and missing persons, and they're also by that law enforcement thought that the uh, phone call that was on the um, answering machine was relevant, but they didn't think that the following up sexual harassing calls were relevant. Uh, s- type of kind of conflicting. And you're right. You could have your phone number unlisted in the phone book, and they charged you for that, so that you didn't get all the harassing phone calls. I guess. Triple S, I agree with you. I do not believe the phone calls to be a coincidence. I don't either. Dave says, so phone tracing was a thing? Absolutely. Good to see you, Jeff. Triple S, but if the phone calls aren't a coincidence, that means it was a neighbor, someone who could see the house and have access to a house phone at the same time. Well, like I said, we had phone booths and things back in that day that were um, all over the country. Actually, due to the part of the country I was at, that radio technology for law enforcement wasn't real great in the '90s. And so we had dead spots that our radios wouldn't reach from our dispatch. And so we knew basically all the numbers by you know, heart. And also we had that we had went around the county and had 911, or not 911, but dispatch, that we could say we're at a certain location, and they'd call the cell or call the phone, and we'd get out and answer the phone to get clear calls of what was going on if our radios weren't picking up. And that's been fixed now that we got the technologies of repeaters and things. But back in the day, it wasn't that way. But um, not so much that it just has to be a neighbor. It could be someone that was sitting in the area in a vehicle and watch them approach, or is there a certain vantage point from um, some of the along this highway where you could see the front of this residence and you could see when someone pulled into the driveway, and especially this close to a main street, that they may have been able to spot someone going in. All right. That's interesting. At the time of the crime, the building adjacent to the east of the house was a mini mart. Okay. I'll have to put that down in my notes. Holly, I don't know if there's uh, since then has been condemned for drugs. I don't know. Trina, good to see you. Appreciate it. Um, Anna said, I think the Springfield, yes, it did have an answer machine, and there was a disturbing message left on it. And since we now have learned that it was inadvertently erased, whatever that call and what was the information contained in it and why was it disturbing. They lost that content, and it wasn't recorded or anything. So I'm sure law enforcement has some type of noted um, of what it contained, and it will be. I don't know if it's out there because they said there was a lot of information released by law enforcement regarding this case, and I haven't found all of it yet, but I'll be looking into that. Um, but yes, and I don't know if the caller was speaking to a certain individual within the household and what was disturbing about it. Was it disturbing for the fact that they knew their name? Because there's a lot of times that, especially with a phone book, you may know one name, but you don't know the other individuals in a household's name. And when we used to take these calls, um, and start our investigations from these harassing phone calls and these predators, because when you conduct these investigations, if they ask to speak to someone in the house that's not listed or known to live there, then of course that means a certain knowledge that is not published in a phone book, or they have to know individuals within the household, and it's just a different type of criminal. Whereas if they're only calling people and wanting to talk to people that's listed in a phone book, it's different uh, method of how they obtain that information. Yes, Betsy, absolutely beautiful women, and good to see you, Patty. Paula says, "So happy to catch it live before it ends." Absolutely. I don't know what the closest would be, but almost phones, those phone booths, they were everywhere at every convenience store, um, across from the Waffle Houses. They usually had a bank of phones, motels, hotels. They always had them a bank of phones somewhere. And yes, and there, I think some people had related some information about the suspect, Robert Craig Cox, about that he was possibly going in and crashing some of the graduation parties. Yes, Dave. It's if the information within the messages, and that's the thing that we've lost that information, and most of the investigators, I believe, or some of the investigators that worked that case at the time, like myself, are retired now. And hopefully I'll be able to get in touch with a couple of them and see if they're willing to share any information, that whenever we start working on this a little bit more in depth, um, and seeing if there was other calls and whatever type of um, information we can get um, as far as other reports, we'll look into. And of course, there's other possibilities of certain plans of actions that we might take, trying to figure out um, if other calls were being made in this one neighborhood or was it across the town. Uh, Grumpy Cat, hi, Mr. C. Were there any persons of interest? Of course, a lot of people, even now, put this Robert Craig Cox, who was a kidnapper and robber, and he had his girlfriend and his parents, I believe, gave him an alibi. I think the girlfriend has since withdrawn that alibi. The parents have not, and but law enforcement um, discredited it and said he had nothing to do with it. Once again, I don't know what they based that upon, but someone knows. I'm new to this one here, so it's very interesting. Like I said, I'd never heard of it until just a few days ago. And this is a great point right here. In my opinion, an abductor planned to get one of the girls or two or the mother, but not all three. Which was it? The younger girls who'd been partying that night or the mom who could have been grabbed earlier? And that's a great point, that if it was the mother as the intended target, she being home alone all the way up till 2 o'clock could have absolutely been um, the target. But with it being that they came home and then they're taken, then that does open up a whole new possibility that it wasn't the mother that was the target, but she had to be taken also for whatever reason. Good point. And they do absolutely. All of them look alike, and they could have all been within a family. Let's see. Oh, Betsy missed the first 10. Molly said that they had caller ID by that time. Um, Sharon says, could the intruder have used chloroform like you see in the TV shows and movies? Um, Now, I have worked cases where they went in and restrained them, and of course, used duct tape and things. Um, and but it's very rare, even for that type of abduction. But it is possible. Chloroform. I never worked a case where any type of chloroform was used. Um, so I think that'd be highly unlikely, but possibility of duct tape and restraints. Patty says, "Hello, Mr. Steve, Mrs. Steve. Mrs. Steve is asleep right now. She's upstairs." Um, Dave has an off-topic question I'll take care of right quick. About the case I'm covering, Mindy West. How long would it take neighbors to notice an odor if she was in the woods for 2 months? Um, I've seen a lot of bad things happen to the body as it decomposes. Depends on what the type of person and what types of foods they were eating, and whatever is within the stomach and the gastrics, and that has a lot to do with that. Um, as far as the rest of the human body, um, it's not that bad, but it is depends a lot about what types of foods they had recently ate. they may not at all, but normally you will see, and I found persons by watching and looking for the birds, crows and buzzards, because they will find you quickly. Hey, gotta get me a new flashlight. Yeah, cell phones were just coming into the age back in the 90s. Yes, and yeah, that star 69 to reverse the callback. And I remember that you did. You could do the if you had the touch tone phones, it was star 69. I don't know if you. I think you could even do it on the rotary phones. And for the people out there that don't know what a rotary phone is, oh man, I bet you there'll be. I've got one. I'm gonna get it. And put it back here next to the bat phone. I'll have me a rotary phone and a touch tone. I just gotta find it. And it says she's still paying for an unlisted number on a landline, $1.25 a month. And that's the thing about these smartphones now. I used to be able to tell you 50 phone numbers. I was younger also. I knew everybody that was important to me. Now, I can't tell you Mrs. Steve's phone number. I have to go in and look for Mrs. Steve. Yes, and I had forgotten about that you could just leave the number and not the address. I saw that, that was something that could be done back then. Um, Hi, Mr. Steve. How do you select which cold case to research? Some of them I'm contacted by families, and I've got one in California I've got to contact this week. I'm running behind, but some of the cold cases are from families, and some of them are people who are just interested in them, and they want information on it. And I use these cold cases as a way to show how law enforcement looks at some of the cases, um, and uh, so that other people out there, as they do research, that they can look at the and approach it from similar avenues. Not saying it's the only way. There's a lot of intelligent people out there that look at cases in a lot of different ways, um, um, and which one is the best. I can only tell you what's worked for me in my career and what law enforcement's trained us to do about certain things. And things are missed, and just like in this case, whoever's making decisions um, and is disregarding certain avenues of what's important and not. Um, we would do the same thing. We'd go to those round tables and we'd discuss things, and because we only have a limited number of people to go down a different path, and because you only have limited resources, and you run that path out, and sometimes by the time you go to another path, it's too late. And that's the reasons that we probably have a lot of cold cases um, from that time and era. Um, but as far as I was looking at some of these things, um, there's no rhyme or reason to it other than people in chat um, that suggest certain cases, and I look at them, and if I can see that by looking at them, I can bring attention and awareness to the case, I do so, um, because there is a great potential that this offender uh, offended again, and not only again, but that he's still within the time frame that he could be active. If this was a very young male at the time, and we're only talking about 30 years ago that he could still be active out there. And so bringing awareness and, um, uh, trying to be as responsible of looking at some of these cases that if this offender is still out there, we most certainly need to find justice for these three victims, but also potential other victims and future victims. Good question. Thank you. And yes, someone that knew their patterns. But the graduation night pattern is a very, I don't know if they always went out on Friday night, but that time of year for the graduations is, typically just a very limited possibility. But if the phone calls were being made to that residence, um, and how could that be, and for what purpose, and how did they research and get that information? Because hopefully I'll be able to find an old phone book for that time period. And for anyone out there that lives out there, I think Molly, you said something about that you knew or were in that area. Um, if if you can find me an old phone book from then, I'd appreciate it because I'll need that for research for different reasons also. Um, I think Cox may still be. I don't know if he's absolutely free or he's serving time in Texas now. I had heard he's still serving time, but that doesn't mean yes. Yes, Molly. Yeah, I had heard that he's possibly serving in Texas now. This is Missouri, GCB. This is Springfield, Missouri. All right. JJ, I know nothing about this case. I have to rewatch and do a bit of research. Absolutely, and let me know anything you find out because, like I said, I I'm new to the case also, and I'm just looking at it, trying to get some awareness brought to it, and we're going to look at it from the um, and see if there's anything that we can bring to it because there was a search done by ground penetrating radar of a certain property, and where some disturbances, anomalies were noted in the ground, but law enforcement didn't uh, proceed and try to dig those up. And so there is an opportunity that if I can get permission for that property, we may bring in our geophysicists if we can get the permission and let them or let her do a search there on this. I'd find that interesting if it substantiated the ground penetrating radar search. Um, I think one or two of the law enforcement officers at that time are now private investigators. So I'll see if I can find them and see if we might be able to work together. Don't know, but we'll find out. Yeah, Southern Gal True Crime, I haven't looked into it very much, just started, and, just compiled this initial, just to get everybody, lined up and, looking at it and getting people's opinions and seeing where we're gonna go with it. Dave said, reminds him of a similar case, and it turned out to be a maintenance guy. They come from all walks of life, guys. Yes, Jocelyn, and I don't know if when I got caller ID or if I ever did. The only reason I have it now, it just comes with a smartphone. Yeah, old phone books have that info listed about how to use it with a rotary dial. Betsy talking about her grandfather. That's funny. They have rotary phones at Waffle Houses. Dave. God. Oh, call me Kitty. Got her cell phone. I think I had my first bag phone somewhere. Um, it was in the early to mid 90s um, when I got my um, first cell phone, bag phone back then. They were big blocky things. Oh, Cynthia, uh, Super Stick $5. Thank you. Appreciate your support. We'll be using that. And leave the blue light on. Thank you for your support. It means a lot to us. Absolutely. And get caught back up here. I'm still 5 minutes behind. Hello, Karen. Good to see you tonight. Um, Patty, yeah. So this case was never resolved. No, still missing to this day, and we'll be covering some more information about them in the future. Like I said, it's a very interesting case, and I don't know why I never heard of it because a lot of people in chat um, absolutely have. Karen says I'm late. No, you're not. Yeah, there may be a city directory for Springfield. Um, I'm I really if Molly said that she'll look into that phone book, and hopefully I can find one. I'm trying to think if I have any of my old phone books around here. I mean, and that was the thing that every uh, phone booth at that time had these phone books in them, and so you had the ability of thousands of names and thousands of addresses, and all you had to do is look through those, and of course they were alphabetical, um, and so it was just hit or miss if you was some type of stalker looking for a certain street. Um, you know, on averages, you'd probably find um, every 10 or 15 pages, you might find maybe one person on like a road close to you, but it was just hit and miss. And this is about as good advice as you can get. Never let someone take you to a second location. Yes, it doesn't get any better than the first location. Everything's downhill from that first location. So, absolutely. That's great advice, Paula. Not many people come back from a second location, if any. Mitzi, uh, my grandparents' phone cord was long enough to jump rope with. You could walk all over the downstairs while talking. Absolutely, I remember those. Yeah, Anna said that they were in church together. That's yeah. You're right, Dave. He was somebody. Once he saw his name in the phone book, he was somebody. Oh yeah, and it still is. The Craigslist and all that still goes on out there, and the dangers of social media, absolutely unreal. Yeah, the libraries. That'd be a good see if the libraries have any of the. Uh, I don't know if they would have anything from 30 years ago or not. From the limited number of articles I've read right now, there doesn't seem to be anything that was disturbed. And as you can see here, other than that front globe porch light being broken, and why would that occur? Um, and don't know, but I know that sometimes they were done as harassment or to get someone outside for some reason, and while the door's unlocked or open, that and those were in domestic issues that they would take advantage of people. We have a new member. Thank you. Um, I missed it. I didn't get to see it, but I saw there's a tag up there. Appreciate your support. And we can look at this, and once again, we have a dog in the residence that's unharmed, and the parallels of this case, and of course, it can't be because of the time frame, but the parallels of this type of individual has this type of fantasy. Um, that's one of the reasons that uh, Ted Bundy said that he could help on the Green River killer investigation because he knew what that offender would do. And we see it in this case that this offender, there's a lot of things, multiple, one residence in the middle of all this bustling roads and homes and residences, just like with Idaho, and that they choose that residence at a certain time and uh, multiple victims. And of course, in this one, they're missing. They're not. There's no homicides within that residence, but and a dog unharmed. It's just absolutely amazing when you look at some of the things that are parallel. Let's see here. What's the building next door? I don't know what all the stores are. Someone said that there's some type of mini mart at one of those stores. I think Molly said that she was familiar with that. Daniel Daniel said that his first cell phone was like a house brick. I thought it was the B knees, and there was actually one of the phones back then that was called a brick because, of course, it looked like a brick. But then the bag phones weighed as much as 4 or 5 bricks. Another detective podcast, not sure I can mention on here, has some great breakdowns on this case. Absolutely. Um, 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 uh, just mention them by name, no problem, because I'm looking for good information also. It, it if there's other people out there that probably are far more advanced and have researched, and if any shortcuts I can take to get caught up quickly, I want to take those shortcuts. Not that I will take all their information without um, um, looking at it and verifying it, because sometimes people can have certain biases. Jeff says we still have payphones where I live. Goodness, I don't think I've seen a payphone um, in years. Patty, how do you look this case up? Just type in Springfield 3. It will pop up. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of information out there on it. Well, there's the new member. Yep. And thank you. Let's see what else we got going on here. Yeah, and you're right. A lot of people, and they still do. You know, they feel that cooperating is the way. 9/11 taught us a lot of things about not cooperating. Grumpy Cat's doing some trivia for us. Thank you, Grumpy Cat. Let's see what else we got going on here. Nokia, Josh the Posh. Uh, who hasn't owned a Nokia? I had one. I probably had about two generations of them. Yes, there was a lady that got in the wrong vehicle, and she didn't survive that. Thought it was her lift. Oh, okay, I appreciate that, Karen, that you upgraded. Thank you. Um, I'm trying to remember the first time I saw a phone in a car, and I can't remember what the movie was, but there was older. Of course, you had James Bond, but there were some other back in the day movies that had um, in the limousines or Rolls Royces. They'd had those big phones in them. Dave, only one, Steve? Yes, Nokia was my first cell phone, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was my first bag phone. How do you upgrade? I think she's talking about on the levels of that you can join as a member, from um, uh, road patrol to investigator to or detective to up to commander. Oops, let me see. My thing jumped. Okay. Sometimes these things just jump here and there. All right. Let me get back up here to where I was. All right. Here we go. Let me get back down through here, guys. I'm not as efficient without Mrs. Steve, uh, but you can't get Mrs. Steve up this time of night. It wouldn't work out for Mr. Steve. Went back too far. Coming back through there, guys. If I missed any of your questions and stuff, I apologize. Um, been trying to get caught up in chat, not letting it get too far behind. But if you do have any information on this case, this is the contact information for you to get in touch with anyone. If you do, as we look at this, if something comes to your awareness, absolutely make sure you law enforcement knows of that. Get back up there. Let's see here. I almost caught back up to where it jumped on me. I'm I'm trying to think. I'm sure I've been through Springfield. Um, I just can't remember that much about it. Patty says we have payphones in Aurora, Colorado, and in Wyoming. Interesting. Cynthia, Mr. Steve, you may be able to find an old phone book on eBay or possibly in the library. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for your support also. I had forgotten about Get Smart had a phone in his shoe, um, and it was a rotary phone, wasn't it? Have a rotary phone in your shoe. Uh, what a classic. Did you know that the case of the mistaken Lyft driver was overseen by Judge Newman from Alec Murdoch trial? No, I did not. Any talk of DNA found at Springfield 3 scene, and and that's the thing. Did they collect that broken globe? Was it broken, and how was it broken? And on the bulb, did they have it? Is there touch DNA? Did they secure that? Um, because it was at the time period of the 90s of where DNA, the awareness of the value of DNA was coming. We didn't know about touch DNA. That came, much later and even now. But it would be interesting uh, because that was at the same time that the CSI movement was coming to pass. Because I started my training on CSI in the late 80s. And by 92, like I said, I was in the initial graduating class of CSI for the state of Georgia. And so Georgia had, I guess at that time, they were probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 of us in Georgia. And I probably imagine across the South, that was probably about the average in each state. Now there's hundreds, if not thousands, of CSIs in all the states, I would imagine. Hopefully. I think the training is not the same with the current CSIs. Dave said Mrs. Steve is probably watching NASCAR. Not yet, but she will. Maxwell Smart. That's right. He had the rotary phone. I'd forgotten about that until that was mentioned. All righty. Molly, control and chaos. Yes, that was the opposing adversaries. But anyway, like I said, I wanted to get started on this one, and I'll probably do as I look through it and I find things of interest, of evidence and persons of interest, and possibly going out there and doing a subsequent search of that property to see if they'll give us permission. I don't know, but I think some of the retired officers are still around, and hopefully I can get in touch with some of them. Like I said, I find it extremely interesting, and it's within the time line that this offender can still be out there and still be operating and doing the same thing. And we most certainly don't want that. That if there's anything we can do to bring some justice for them and to take a offender off the street, we have to at least try. But anyway, guys, I appreciate everybody that's been here tonight, and looking forward to seeing y'all. I'll have another show later this evening. We'll probably be looking at some of the Smith stuff with Stephen Smith, and so I look forward to seeing y'all then. And we thank everybody that supports this channel in so many different ways. And if you liked it, subscribe, share, and y'all stay safe out there. And I'll see y'all in a few hours from now, guys. Bye-bye.